"This little thing needs to quiet down, princess," the biker sneered, his grimy fingers closing around the violin's delicate neck. The 10-year-old girl's eyes widened with terror, her small frame trembling. He was about to shatter her world in a single, violent motion, completely unaware of the figure in the shadows whose gaze was hardening like flint. But then, before I show you exactly what happened next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now let's get into it. The City Plaza was a kaleidoscope of late afternoon light and vibrant life. A modern oasis humming with the cheerful chaos of urban existence. Interactive fountains shot arcs of water into the air, catching the golden sunlight as children shrieked with delight, darting through the spray. Sleek food trucks lined the perimeter, their windows serving up a global menu of enticing aromas. Spicy tacos, sweet crepes, and sizzling barbecue. Above, massive LED billboards painted the sky with silent, shifting colors. It was a place of connection, a living, breathing heart in the center of the metropolis where stories unfolded every minute. And at the very center of it all was the smallest, purest story of them all. Lily, a 10-year-old girl with bright, determined eyes and hair the color of spun gold, stood beside a small, hand-painted sign that read, "Music for Pause." A small, open violin case at her feet held a modest collection of coins and a few crumpled bills. She was playing her violin, not for fame or fortune, but to raise money for the local animal shelter. Each note she coaxed from the instrument was filled with an earnest, unpolished passion. It wasn't the sound of a concert hall prodigy. It was the sound of pure, unadulterated heart, a melody of kindness that wove its way through the plaza's lively buzz. Leaning against a cool stone pillar on the edge of the crowd, a man watched, unnoticed. At 60, Jason Statham had a face etched with the kind of lines that told stories of their own. He wore a simple, dark casual jacket and moved with an economy of motion that made him blend into the background, just another face in the crowd. He was in town for a film project, seeking a moment of anonymity, but Lily's music had cut through the noise. He saw more than just a little girl playing an instrument. He saw a quiet courage, a tiny beacon of good in a world that often felt overwhelmingly loud and cynical. He watched as a young mother dropped $1 into the case, her toddler staring at Lily with wide, curious eyes. He saw an elderly man in a wheelchair tap his foot along to the tune, a soft smile on his face. This small act of charity was a ripple of positivity, and Statham found himself guarding the moment from a distance, a silent, unseen sentinel. But the harmony of the plaza was about to be brutally torn apart. A low, guttural roar began to build from the east entrance, a sound that cut through the cheerful chatter like a chainsaw. Heads turned as a gang of 6 bikers thundered into the square, their motorcycles gleaming with chrome and menace. They parked their machines in a jagged line, their engines idling with an aggressive rumble that sent vibrations through the cobblestones. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Laughter died in people's throats, parents pulled their children closer, and a palpable tension descended upon the once peaceful scene. They were clad in worn leather vests adorned with snarling animal patches and crude slogans. At their center was their leader, Troy, a mountain of a man with a thick, unkempt beard and eyes that scanned the crowd with predatory amusement. His smirk was a promise of chaos. He dismounted, his heavy boots striking the ground with an arrogant thud. His gaze swept across the fountains, the food trucks, and the nervous onlookers, finally landing on the smallest figure in the plaza, Lily. She had faltered for a moment when the bikes arrived, her bow hovering over the strings, but then, with a deep breath, she had started to play again, her melody now a fragile thread in a storm of intimidation. Troy's smirk widened. He had found his entertainment for the evening. Troy swaggered towards Lily, his crew fanning out behind him, creating an intimidating semicircle that cut her off from the rest of the crowd. The onlookers shuffled back, a silent retreat that left the little girl and the bikers in a stark, isolated circle of conflict. Statham pushed himself off the pillar, his body language shifting from relaxed observer to coiled readiness. He didn't move closer, Not yet, but his focus was now absolute, his gaze locked on Troy. Well, what do we have here? Troy's voice was a gravelly boom, dripping with mock admiration. A little songbird. You think anyone wants to hear that screeching, kid? He stopped just a few feet from her, close enough for her to smell the stale cigarette smoke on his leather vest. Lily stopped playing. Her small hands tightened on her violin and bow. She looked up at the towering figure, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. But instead of cowering, she lifted her chin, her voice small but clear. I'm playing for the animals, she said. They don't have a home. Her simple, honest reply seemed to amuse Troy even more. He let out a loud, barking laugh and turned to his gang. Did you hear that? She's playing for the puppies and kittens. One of his cronies, a lanky man with a snake tattoo coiling up his neck, chimed in. Yeah, I'm sure they can hear you from the pound, sweetie. The mockery was a physical force, pressing in on Lily. Yet, she stood her ground. It helps them buy food and blankets, she insisted, her voice trembling slightly, but refusing to break. This quiet defiance seemed to extinguish Troy's amusement, replacing it with a flash of raw anger. He hated being challenged, especially by someone so small, so insignificant. You've got a smart mouth, you know that? He snarled, taking another step forward. Maybe you need to learn some respect. One of his men, eager to impress, moved forward and with a flick of his boot, kicked Lily's open violin case. The coins and bills scattered across the pavement, skittering into the cracks between the cobblestones like frightened insects. Oops, the biker said with a hollow grin. Looks like a poor harvest today. Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she saw the donations. Each one a small gift of kindness, now scattered and dirty. She knelt to pick them up, her small fingers fumbling. But before she could gather a single coin, Troy grabbed the violin from her grasp. The instrument looked impossibly fragile in his massive, grease-stained hand. You're more worried about this junk than showing us respect? He growled. Lily gasped and reached for it. Please, she whispered, her voice finally breaking. My grandpa gave me that. Her plea was the final trigger. It was a sign of weakness, of attachment, and for a bully like Troy, it was an invitation. Grandpa's gift? Huh, he sneered. Well, Grandpa should have bought you something tougher. And with that, he raised the small violin high in the air. For a heart-stopping second, the entire plaza held its breath. The image was a portrait of cruelty. The giant, leather-clad man, the tiny, perfect instrument held aloft, and the horrified face of a 10-year-old girl. He brought it down with savage force, smashing it against the hard edge of the fountain. The crack of splintering wood was sharp and sickening, a sound that echoed across the now silent square. The violin, a vessel of music and love, shattered into a dozen pieces. Lily let out a choked sob, a sound of pure heartbreak. The shattered remains of the violin lay on the ground, a testament to the casual cruelty that had just unfolded. Troy looked down at the wreckage, then at Lily's tear-streaked face, a satisfied smirk spreading across his own. He had broken her spirit, just as he had broken her instrument. There, he said, his voice laced with triumph. Now it's quiet. He raised his hand, pointing a thick finger at her face, ready to deliver a final, terrifying verbal blow. And you're gonna... He never finished the sentence. A hand clamped down on his wrist, stopping his arm mid-air. The grip was not just strong. It was like a vice forged from steel. Troy's head whipped to the side, his eyes widening in a mixture of shock and pain. He found himself staring into the calm, ice-cold eyes of Jason Statham. That's enough, Statham said. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried an authority that cut through the tension like a razor. The entire plaza, which had been frozen in horror, now held a different kind of stillness. The electric silence of anticipation. The bikers, who had been laughing moments before, now looked confused and wary. Troy tried to wrench his arm free, but Statham's grip was immovable. Who the hell are you? Troy growled, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Before Statham could answer, the biker with the snake tattoo whispered in awe, his voice barely audible. Dude, that's Jason Statham. Troy scoffed, trying to reclaim his bravado. What, the movie star? You think you're tough in real life." Statham released his wrist with a deliberate, almost dismissive motion. "I'm giving you one chance," he said, his tone flat and devoid of emotion. "Pick up every single coin you scattered. Apologize to the girl, and then get out of here." Troy's face contorted with rage. He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Get him!" he roared to his gang. The first biker, the one who had kicked the case, lunged forward with a wild haymaker. Statham didn't even seem to move. He simply shifted his weight, letting the punch sail harmlessly past his ear. In a single fluid motion, he grabbed the biker's outstretched arm, spun him around, and used his own momentum to send him crashing into a metal trash can, which crumpled with a loud clang. The crowd gasped. The second and third bikers charged together, trying to overwhelm him with numbers. Statham met them head-on. He ducked under a clumsy swing from one, using the man's body as a shield against the other. A quick, precise jab to the throat of the first man sent him staggering back, gasping for air. Statham then spun, delivering a powerful elbow strike to the second man's solar plexus, doubling him over. Chaos erupted. A fourth biker tried to flank him, but Statham seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. He pivoted and delivered a sharp, disabling kick to the man's knee. The biker screamed as his leg buckled beneath him. The fifth, the one with the snake tattoo, pulled out a chain. Statham moved before the chain could even be swung, closing the distance in 2 quick steps. He deflected the man's arm and delivered a series of short, brutally efficient palm heel strikes to his chest and jaw, sending him to the pavement in a daze. It was over in less than 30 seconds. It wasn't a fight, it was a disassembly. Now, only Troy remained. The leader stood frozen, his face a mask of disbelief and dawning fear. His gang was scattered around him, groaning and incapacitated. He cracked his knuckles, a desperate, last-ditch effort to appear menacing. He let out a primal yell and charged at Statham, throwing a flurry of wild, sloppy punches. Statham deflected each one with contemptuous ease, his hands moving in a blur. He blocked a right hook, then a left. Then he stepped inside Troy's guard and delivered a single, devastatingly precise punch to the gut. The air exploded from Troy's lungs. Before he could even double over, Statham hooked a leg behind him in a perfect takedown, sending the big man crashing to the ground. Statham stood over him, unshaken, not even breathing heavily. "Had enough?" he asked quietly. Troy just groaned. The battered bikers stumbled to their feet, helped their leader up, and without another word, limped back to their motorcycles. They roared out of the square, their retreat as loud and chaotic as their arrival, leaving behind only the echo of their humiliation. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. The moment the last motorcycle disappeared from view, the plaza exploded with a collective sigh of relief, followed immediately by a wave of jubilant energy. The fear that had paralyzed the crowd moments earlier was replaced by a powerful sense of unity and gratitude. People surged forward, their applause echoing off the surrounding buildings. Several rushed to Lily, who was still standing by the fountain, her small body shaking with a mixture of shock and awe. A kind-faced woman knelt and wrapped a comforting arm around her shoulders. Statham ignored the applause. His attention was solely on the child. He walked over, his movements calm and deliberate, and crouched down to her level, bringing his formidable presence down to a gentle, reassuring scale. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice soft. Lily could only nod, wiping tears from her eyes with the back of her hand. She looked from Statham's concerned face to the scattered pieces of her beloved violin. "My violin," she whispered, her voice thick with sorrow. "It's broken." "An instrument can be replaced," Statham said gently. "Your courage can't. You didn't run. That's what matters." His words seemed to anchor her, a simple, powerful truth that cut through her distress. As they spoke, the community was already in motion. People were on their hands and knees, carefully picking up the scattered coins and bills, their faces set with determination. A teenager started a small pile on a napkin, and soon everyone was adding to it, creating a small mountain of donations that was far larger than what had been there before. Then, A new voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. "Let's get her a new violin." The suggestion came from a young man near the back, and it spread like wildfire. "Yes," someone shouted. "Let's all pitch in." The idea was met with a chorus of enthusiastic agreement. As Lily watched, her expression slowly transformed from one of heartbreak to one of wide-eyed wonder. The cruelty of one group of men was being erased by the kindness of 100 strangers. Statham stood up, stepping back to let the community have its moment. He was no longer the enforcer. He was just a witness to something beautiful. Just then, a man in a flour-dusted apron pushed his way through the crowd. "There's no need for a collection," he announced, his voice booming with warmth. He was the owner of a small, old-fashioned music shop just off the square. "I saw what happened. I have a violin in my shop. It's been waiting for the right person." He disappeared for a few minutes and returned carrying a sleek, black instrument case. The crowd parted respectfully as he approached Lily. "This is for you," he said, his eyes twinkling. "From all of us." With trembling hands, Lily opened the case. Nestled inside on a bed of rich, blue velvet was a beautiful new violin, its wood polished to a deep, warm shine. She let out a soft gasp. She gently lifted the instrument, her fingers tracing its smooth curves. She tucked it under her chin, took a deep breath, and drew the bow across the strings. A single, clear, perfect note rang out through the plaza. It was a sound of hope, of resilience, of a community that had refused to let darkness win. The crowd burst into the loudest applause of the day. Lily looked up, a radiant smile finally breaking through her tears. She looked over at Statham and nodded once, a silent, profound thank you. Then, she began to play again. The music that flowed from the new violin was richer and stronger than before, filled with the strength and kindness she had just been shown. The plaza was alive with joy, its heart beating in time with her song. That single act of standing up wasn't just about one man's strength. It was about unlocking the courage hidden within 100 silent witnesses. It reminds us that true power isn't in the fist you raise, but in the community you inspire to stand with you. A shattered violin was replaced, but what was truly rebuilt that day was faith in each other, proving that a single spark of defiance can reignite an entire city's heart. Have you ever witnessed an injustice and wished someone would step in? Or maybe you were that someone. What would you have done if you were in the crowd, watching everything unfold before Statham intervened? Do you believe that courage is contagious, and that one person's actions can truly inspire a wave of good in the world? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and please be respectful. If this story reminded you that heroes still walk among us, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about everyday courage and unexpected justice. Share this with someone who needs to see that kindness is stronger than cruelty. We read every single comment, and your stories matter to us. More stories about incredible moments of bravery are waiting for you right on your screen. Click on one of them to watch next. And we'll see you tomorrow with another story that will restore your faith in humanity.